This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jasperson.
I want to welcome you to this episode of Real Talk. We're scam busting. We're going to protect not just your dough, not just your parents' dough and their financial security, but, as an example off the top of my head, funds that are designed to be reaching evacuees of the Jasper wildfire. I know that we shouldn't be surprised that scammers are already trying to get their dirty mitts on those dollars. It's something that seems to be on the rise, scammers. And Julie Matthews in Western Canada is the name that people go to when it comes to scam detection, scam busting, protecting yourself, and we're grateful that she's made herself available for this episode of Real Talk. John Hicks, the producer of this show, how long has it been since you received a call from an unknown caller, maybe even a Canadian phone number?
Oh, it's like yesterday.
Yesterday.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time now, and it's now I actually got my first AI one.
What?
Yeah, so it was like, I don't know who they were trying to mimic, but it sounded like a relative or something who needed money.
Oh, geez.
And was something to do with the police. And I need you to call a constable, but it clearly didn't sound right. So I just hung up. But I listened for a bit just because of the show. I wanted some context. But it's amazing the lengths that scammers are going to now. And the first thing I think of is the elderly. I think these are pushed towards people who don't understand technology that much. Someone like me caught it right away, but I know others will immediately think my family member's in jeopardy or in trouble and I need to send money to this account, etc.
100%. And we see these reports of like the red flags that we should notice or the things we should keep an eye out for. But these scammer techniques are always evolving and always changing. And that's one of the reasons why we're grateful that Julie's here. I'll tell you a little story in just a second because I want to get Julie's take on it of call logs and phone, just how everything's changing. If you're like me, you're screening like every single call that's coming to your phone if it's not coming from a number you recognize. Obviously, there's implications there. We could be missing important calls, but I'm so sick and tired of being targeted by these folks. You can let us know what you're thinking about this. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we'll be looking for your comments and questions in the chat or on the Mixlr live streaming audio app presented by California Closets. Hit us up there. And, of course, our email inbox always open to talk@ryanjesperson.com. First, hey, it's the 1st of August, and there's a couple implications on that. Number one is that there's a webinar today that we want to have on your radar. If you're listening to us live, this starts at 11 o'clock Mountain Time, 1 p.m. Eastern, and it's presented by the team at HRO Training. What's an HRO? It's a high reliability organization. This would be like an airline. This would be like a nuclear power plant. These are organizations that simply cannot have screw-ups. They can't have accidents on the job. And high reliability organizations understand what it means to establish exceptional safety records, working in high-risk industries with high efficiency and high reliability. If you're working for an HRO, this webinar is for you, ensuring safety excellence, overcoming contractor management challenges. It's hosted by Chris Labossiere, who's CEO of We Know Training, and Rob Stewart, an applied behavioral scientist. He's a subject matter expert when it comes to workplace safety, workplace injuries, and fatalities. And you can still register right now at hro.training/webinars if you use the promo code Ryan20. That's all one word, Ryan20. They'll knock 20% off the investment that you're making taking part in that webinar. That's hro.training/webinars. Members of our Western Canadian audience will no doubt know the name Julie Matthews. She was an investigative TV reporter for almost 20 years, including 10 years as Global Edmonton's Troubleshooter, where she solved problems for countless Albertans. She then traded her microphone for a badge, becoming a peace officer and a senior investigator with the Government of Alberta's Consumer Investigations Unit. She recently left government. She started up her own consulting business. She's talking to seniors, community groups, and other organizations about the latest frauds and scams. Julie's also a certified fraud examiner, and she's co-chair of the Alberta Fraud Prevention Month Planning Committee. fraud and fraud prevention. I was about to say fraud is what you do. That is not what you do.
No, but I am a fraud nerd, I would say, Ryan. Yeah.
You and I feel like I feel like I've known you for 20 years, but that's because how everybody feels, because you've been this trusted voice in media. Someone would come to you, here's a hypothetical, and say my grandfather was targeted by scammers. Next thing you know, he's loading up Best Buy gift cards to pay off a debt to the CRA that doesn't exist, and then you would get on that trail and you'd try to help the family out. How did you get started in this line of work?
I was just a television reporter like any other one, covering, fires and current events. And then I was actually looking to come back to Alberta because my family, born and raised in the Edmonton area, and the Troubleshooter gig was open at Global Edmonton. And so I applied and got the gig. And I grew up watching the original Troubleshooter, Ross McLaughlin banging down doors and getting in people's faces. And I thought, that's not me. I'm not a pit bull. But honestly, SCAMS and being the troubleshooter kind of changed who I am and made me who I am today. I love hearing people's stories. There aren't enough places for people to turn when they're in trouble. They don't know where to go. And I absolutely love those interactions and feeling like you can, as corny as it sounds, make a difference.
Did you have to step outside of your own personality? Did you have to develop a whole other side of you that you say I'm not a pit bull, but you obviously found that somewhere?
Yeah, you do find it, because I think you feel that anger, right? When you talk to seniors at their kitchen table about the $50,000 that they've lost, and you can't help but feel angry and want to help them. And even in the cases where we weren't able to get their money back from an insurance company, from a used car problem, a travel agency, whatever it might have been, or a scam, you still could teach other people. What can we all learn from the experience that this person had?
I guarantee that we're going to have stories popping up in our live chat here, and I know people will have questions for you as well. I was with three buddies yesterday, and we were talking about how you were coming on the show, and a couple of them were very familiar with your work as the troubleshooter. And I said, how many of you, same question I asked Johnny, how many of you are getting regular calls from scammers, calls you don't recognize? We pulled out our call logs and we were showing each other, and it's amazing. Everyone's like wife, girlfriend, mom, kids is like sprinkled into the call logs, but surrounding all those calls is call after call after call. I feel like I'm getting, feels to me like 5 to 10 a week from numbers, scammers. Obviously, it becomes apparent pretty quickly. At least my spidey senses are tingling. But these are numbers like from Alberta, from BC, from New Brunswick. It seems to have changed.
I received 2 myself yesterday. And what people need to know is that the scammers use spoofing technology. It's very, very easy. So you can't trust any name or any number that shows up on your call display. They purposely enter a 780 number or a 403 number because they know that you're more likely to answer a number that looks local. They can even actually have the words Canada Revenue Agency or RCMP show up on your call display, and it is definitely not the CRA or RCMP calling.
Wow. We've got Alberta girl tuning in who says what really gets me miffed is I pay a lot for cell phone service and 99% of the calls seem to be scams. She says, I have a newish Samsung, though. It has AI of some sort, she says, and it actually seems to identify some calls as scams coming in. Is that a thing? Is phone technology improving?
Technology is getting better, and some cell phone providers actually have it so that if a call comes in, the person has to enter a 4-digit code before the call will proceed.
I like that.
And that is working very well, but not all providers have it. So I do suggest that everyone talk to their cell phone provider, especially if they are getting many calls, because there may be options and technology and tools that your provider has that you aren't using right now.
Wow, Mark is listening. He says, I was at my 92-year-old mom's house. A call came in that sounded like my brother, said he was in a car accident. He had looked at his phone and crashed. Mark says, the only problem is my brother doesn't have a car or a phone, and says as soon as we challenged the caller, they hung up. These are brazen efforts.
Yeah, and this is the same one your producer was talking about. So this is the one the police call the emergency scam, or often the grandparent scam, because it started off with people going, Grandma, I'm in trouble, and pretending to be the grandchild. AI technology is making this more challenging now because they will sound like a family member, but they're always in jail. They were in an accident. They injured someone. The scammers will work in groups. So the first person you talk talk to says, hi, grandma, it's me. The second person will be the lawyer. So a second scammer will get on the phone. Then a third scammer will get on the phone and say, I'm the police officer. I need $5,000 sent to me right now, or your grandchild will not be released. And so one of the tips I've heard about recently is families could have a family password. Now, we always think of this with young children. So stranger danger, right? At a park, someone needs to give the password before the child would go with them. But what if we used it with adults as well? There was a case recently in Alberta where a grandparent had a family password. They got the call from someone pretending to be a family member, and they said, okay, what's the password? Of course, the scammer didn't have it.
I love that. I've got Friesen Brothers on the brain for something. It could be like strawberry crumble or something, pumpkin pie, whatever the code's going to be. This is resonating. We knew that it would. I mean, the live chat's booming right now, and Plain Power says that they got a call from Lamont, Alberta yesterday, but it turned out to be a so-called Amazon customer service scam call. For the podcast listeners, your eyes just hit the roof when you hear. Is that one of the recurring ones? Is that a regular one?
Well, I mean, there are so many, like pretending to be Amazon, pretending to be Costco, pretending to be Shoppers Drug Mart, any retailer, but Amazon is huge because everyone uses Amazon pretty much, right? So whether it's text messages, emails claiming you've been locked out of your account, they purchased an iPhone, click one if you really didn't purchase this iPhone, and then you get sent to this call center. Sometimes I press one just to have a little fun and play along with them, but they usually get mad, swear at me, and hang up.
I know. I keep hearing stories of like it doesn't take much for some of these scammers to lose their minds and start like spewing profanity back at the person, which kind of feels like a win when you were the target, and then you trigger them a little bit, I guess. But at the end of the day, you realize what we're messing around with here. I had a call the other day. I was here at work, but it's one that got my attention, and you feel like you're probably being scammed, but you also feel like you can't ignore it. It calls, it says it's Visa, it looks to be a legitimate number, and then it says we're investigating 2 charges on your card, one of them an Amazon charge, $1,400, one of them a whatever other charge for $500, I think a cash advance or something like that. Then they said if you did not make these charges, press 1. Well, obviously I feel like I'm going to press 1 because what if it's real? And then all of a sudden I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to call the number on the back of my Visa card. Is that the right play in that circumstance?
That is the right play. I mean, I joke around about pressing 1 and talking to them and wasting their time, but I really recommend that everyone hangs up unless you're a police officer or someone, because you don't know what's going to happen when you press 1. You're probably going to get sent to a call center, but what if you get rerouted and there's extra charges involved? There's so many different variables at play. But yes, hang up, call the number on the back of your card. Someone might call and pretend to be your cell phone provider, maybe your utility provider. Exactly. Don't trust the number the scammer's giving you. Look up the actual website for Alberta Gas or TELUS or Shaw or whoever it is and actually call the number you trust. Because again, they might give you a number in that email or that text or that phone call, but it's just going to be the number for another scammer.
Exactly, right? You're just going to fall further into this. I'm fascinated. I want to pick your brain on how you stay on top of all this stuff. But first, why don't we get to this? One of the main reasons we wanted to talk to you is this is an active situation. We're talking to folks at the very beginning of August right here. Our beloved town of Jasper has just experienced a life-changing natural disaster for many, many people. 25,000 evacuated. Many residents' lives will be forever changed. But, in the meantime, as before this rebuild begins, we're trying to help folks just stay on their feet, just be able to provide the bare necessities. So for obvious reasons, fundraising efforts are underway. Some folks are donating to the Red Cross, to the Alberta Fund there and getting the funds matched. Some folks are going directly to what we're recommending as well, which is the Jasper Community Team Society. You can donate there directly at jaspercommunityteamsociety.ca. I know across the province there were bottle drives yesterday for Jasper, but we shouldn't be surprised that scammers are trying to get their claws into some of these funds. What's happening with the Jasper funds?
Yeah, scammers absolutely love current events, and sadly that includes tragedies as well, and the Jasper fire is no different. So far, I haven't personally received any of these scams, but the Jasper Team Society Jasper Team Community
Team Society,
yes,
got it, yeah.
They put out a warning on their Facebook page and social media yesterday or this week, warning people again and again that they are getting reports of people claiming to be collecting donations operations for the residents and businesses of Jasper that are not legitimate. Also seeing chatter on the Jasper evacuees Facebook pages where people are saying that evacuees are being contacted by people claiming that they'll help them get EI or benefits, taking their SIN, taking their social insurance number, their personal information, and those aren't legitimate people. So unfortunately, it's not just targeting those people who are trying to donate and help, it's also potentially targeting the evacuees.
Jeez.
We have to be so careful, and the evacuees and anyone listening, don't provide personal information. You need to double check everything.
Are there some, so that's a great tip right there, but are there like common recurring themes with some of these efforts or some of these scams that would allow people to say, A plus B is C? I know that this is a scam. Like, are there recurring things that happen where you can sniff it out from a mile away?
Well, with most scams, we would say things like if it's too good to be true, right? That goes for any online scam, Facebook Marketplace, etc. But for something like the Jasper fire, that's a little bit more challenging because they're preying on us when we're vulnerable and we're seeing what's happening in Jasper and we want to help so badly that we're more likely to maybe not second guess. So you need to watch for details, specifics, like even a GoFundMe claiming to raise money for Jasper. Like do a reverse Google image search on the pictures of the family that they're claiming is from Jasper. What if they actually aren't? Double check the recipient, double check where that money is going. Real fundraisers like the community fund that you mentioned, they're going to be able to tell you and answer those questions about where that money is going and where exactly to send it. I mean, you just really need to be so cautious. And honestly, you have to assume, sadly, that everything is a scam now. And that's just the truth. No one else is going to look out for us. We need to protect our own money. And it's not, whereas Canadians, we're just so polite. We don't like to ask those questions sometimes.
Yeah, you have to almost develop a cynicism or a skepticism or just that extra layer. It's interesting because on this show, many times I can think of 5 times off the top of my head where we've recommended and linked to GoFundMes for people. Crowdfunding is a wonderful way to be able to support people. It's a quick and easy way to do it for people to quickly raise money and send it directly to someone who needs it. But it also opens up the door for a ton of scams, right? I mean, if we recommend on this show a GoFundMe, it's because, in the chair you're sitting in is the person that's organizing it or is the benefactor of it or whatever the case may be. But in many circumstances, that's not it. Anyone could set up one of these and quickly raise tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars with the right tear-jerking story.
Yeah, and it does happen more than we realize, and that's why people need to be careful and just do that double checking. If you're looking at a GoFundMe, how new is the account? Take the name of the person who created it, search them on Facebook, search them on social media. If this person's claiming to live in Jasper, but then you look at their, X account or Facebook or Instagram and they're actually in Oregon, well, that might be a bit of a tip-off.
We get a ton of, and I see this a lot I'm on a community Facebook page. I think probably these days most people are. The community you live in or the town you live in, it has its own Facebook page, and sometimes they're just wildly entertaining.
Yes.
There's all like the top contributors. I mean, some of the stuff that happens on these pages are amazing, but there's always or often the well-intentioned person that's sharing the story of the lost dog or the puppy that was found on the acreage or whatever. And of course, everybody starts, this beautiful, and everybody gets involved and everybody wants to help. And then sure enough, in the comments, about 15 down in the comments is someone who's seen it before and says, this is a scam. What's going on with these ones?
I feel like this could be a full-time job for me, Ryan, going in and going, this is a scam, this is a scam, this is a scam,
Yeah.
over and over and over again. Because so the injured pets, the missing child, the missing senior, we want to help. So again, we want to share it. So why are the scammers doing it? As you can see, we're looking at one picture right now for those watching right now. There's a picture of an injured dog, but then within 24 hours, it changes to a rental scam post. So that's what the scammers are doing. So let's say it's an injured pet. They want that shared as many times as possible. Please help me find the owner. Once it's been shared so many times, they change that from a sad injured picture of a pet to a rental scam, to a link to sell a product, which takes you to a website that's going to download malware onto your computer, steal your information. And if you share a missing child post, Ryan, people are going to be likely to trust it. When it changes to a rental scam post or something else, they're going to be like, oh, Ryan must support this.
Right.
Ryan person must know these people who are renting this property out. And that's what the scammers are up to. And there's a sad side to this too. When we're sharing pictures of children who are supposedly missing, some of these children were missing years ago in the United States and were found, but some of them may not have been found. And these pictures, imagine what the parents and the families are going through if these pictures keep circulating and circulating over and over again. On one page, it says they're from Iowa. Another page, it says the girl's missing in Winnipeg. One of the red flags to spot these, the comments are always turned off.
So that's one of the hints. This is, you know what really sucks about this, though, is that this interferes with, this comes back to what you're talking about, the character traits that we like to believe that separate us from everybody else as Canadians. And it's our empathy and our kindness and our caring and our generosity. But it's the empathy here now when someone sees the photo of the missing dog. I'm always going to share the missing dog photo if it's like, heaven forbid, Julie Matthews' dog has gone missing in the country, and I'm going to share it because maybe you text me and say, hey, it would really help if you could amplify this. But now you got to have people. We got to tell people, like, maybe we got to stop sharing some of this stuff. And for a lot of people, that's difficult to do. They feel like they're not contributing in a way that they could previously to the health of their community, right? I mean, there's a reason why these scams are so effective, because they tap into our connection with one another, our desire to help one another.
They really do. I mean, scammers take advantage of current events, and they take advantage of our heart. Anything they can do to get money from us that makes that seem more legitimate is what they're going to try and do.
This is such a gut punch. We got a comment here from Cherie who says, my dad, a former banker, pretty tech savvy, a real skeptic, was scammed out of 27 grand. He did all the checking, did all the follow through, but these guys were just really good and covered all their bases. Sometimes the person who's least likely to get scammed is going to fall victim.
I've talked to police officers in Alberta who've fallen for scams. I mean, anyone can fall for it. A lot of people listening might be like, this is something that affects seniors. I would never fall for this. But we need to remember these are online predators. This is their job. They're sitting somewhere with a file folder, creating a text scam to try and take money from us. They've got a little folder on Ryan or a little folder on Julie, and they're going through our social media and collecting information so that they can try and target us sometimes.
Okay, so this isn't all algorithms. Like this is actually a human that is going through and combing our social media and actually picking up on stuff like key details. They're actually kind of putting a file together on us. They're going to know the names of some of our best friends, where we last went on vacation, where we donate to, where we work maybe.
So it depends on the scam. Some scams, it's a numbers game. They're just throwing it out like a CRA call, right? From Canada Revenue Agency. That's a numbers game. They're just robocalling as many people as they can, hoping someone's going to fall for it. But for something like the grandparent scam or the emergency scam that your producer and one of the other people was mentioning, that one, they're going to try and get some personal details. They're going to want maybe the name of your grandchild or your son or your daughter. The hitman scam that was recently in the news, Ryan, that's what they were doing with that one. They were getting personal details off people's Facebook and social media accounts. So when they messaged the person and said, hi, I'm a hitman, I'm an assassin, I've been hired to take you out, basically.
Jeez.
The only reason people fall for this is because they're including maybe the name of your child, maybe that where you grew up, right? They're using personal details. Do not overshare so much on social media because the scammers are watching.
I'll reference CTV News out of Vancouver. Andrew Weichel, the journalist out there, posted this story 2 hours ago. This is an active story right now. BC RCMP's detachment warning folks to not fall prey for this hitman scam. This is kind of a long-standing one. This isn't a new one. These techniques flare up over time?
Yeah, the hitman scam, I would say once a year, it probably flares up, and sometimes in different areas. And there's often new tactics. So definitely the hitman scam isn't new. Sometimes we see it with a variation where it tends to target a specific community and uses some variances that specifically impact that community. But yeah, it's not new. And again, you're asking yourself, who would fall for this? But you need to remember how good these people are at what they do. And if they have the name of your children and people in your family and personal details, maybe someone's going to fall for that.
100%. Julie Matthews, our guest. Hang tight for a second. Johnny, when we come back from this real quick break, you had just showed a photo. You showed an online about parking tickets, speeding tickets. It's a text message. I want to ask you about this because I've heard people talk. I've never personally received it, but this seems to be one that's making the rounds. We're talking to Julie Matthews more in just 60 seconds. First, though, it is the 1st of August today, which means that at Friesen Brothers locations across the province, there's 17 of them across Alberta. Groceries are 15% off today. Every purchase of $75 or more. Friesen Brothers knows that every single family is trying to stretch every single dollar as much as we can, and that's why shopping on the 1st of every month makes perfect sense. You can check out their website, friesen.com, for even more savings. We love the flyer section. That's those family essential flyer suggestions. You can view the flyer. Not only do they have great specials, quality food for low prices, but they've also got easy family meal recipes. So your family's going to eat well. They're going to love it. Look what they're featuring right now. Greek salads, Greek orzo salads, yogurt popsicles, spatchcock chicken, tuna sandwich, and ripple chips. This is my love language. You can learn more at friesen.com. And if your family is set on getting organized this summer, you want to maybe make it your project before fall hits and the kids are back to school, why not set a deadline? Why not set a date and request a free consultation with California Closets? Nobody does custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home better than California Closets. I'm talking from firsthand experience. It was almost 10 years ago. We hired their team. Their designer, Reese, who's still there, by the way, brilliant in the plan he put together for our home, and they did it all on budget. Plus, we have the peace of mind that the entire project is guaranteed for life. That all starts again with that free consultation booked today at californiaclosets.ca. Talking to Julie Matthews for many years, she was the Troubleshooter. That's how she's been known to many, many people. Since then, of course, a career as a peace officer, a senior investigator with the Government of Alberta's Consumer Investigations Unit, and now working as a consultant. That's an interesting career journey, by the way. When you're working in law enforcement, you know, you're the senior investigator, you're the peace officer. How often does something like this, I mean, I guess we're talking about different jurisdictions, different countries in many cases, but how often does this result in an arrest, in prosecution, and maybe even in restitution, somebody getting their money back?
I had was just government provincial legislation. So it had more to do with contractor complaints, landlord complaints,
right.
Business complaints in Alberta. But for RCMP, Edmonton Police Service, and other people who are dealing with the online scams, the romance scams, the Kijiji scams, other things coming in, some of those are locally based, but a lot of them are based overseas, these scammers, and tracking them down is a problem. As I mentioned, they use spoofing technology, right, to hide their phone numbers. They're using fake names, fake pictures on social media if they're ripping people off that way. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, which is through the RCMP, is a great place for people to go to get information about scams. They have a great website. You can call them. And also it's a great place to report scams too. So they collect all of that information and they will do a disruption program. So if it's dating scams, they'll shut down dating profiles. They'll shut down cell phone numbers where scams are coming from. And they're the ones who would work with people like the FBI and other agencies to try and find these call centers overseas or try and track down the larger scammers.
Have you seen, or have there been some good news stories that you've witnessed? Like, does anybody ever get their 27 grand back? Does anybody, are those more rare than we'd like to believe?
Well, you mean from the online scams?
Yeah,
that one's tough, I think. There are cases, I mean, especially if the money is being wired. There have been cases where, let's say it's a senior and they go to the bank to wire the money and they send it and then the bank teller kind of catches it, or maybe they go to MoneyGram and they're about to send it and then their child hears about it and so says, whoa, we need to stop this. If the money hasn't been picked up yet, there might be a way to reverse it.
Jeremy Farkas in our live chat right now, he says probably best not to talk to the scammers. Your number will get added to a database of good confirmed numbers, someone who will talk. Is that a thing?
Yes, if you answer the phone, then they will. A lot of it is the robocalls, right? They're looking for what numbers are actually being picked up. So then it's an active call. That is true. Some of my family members actually have a trick. They have an air horn beside their phone. And whenever a scammer calls, they get a good blast. And they claim it actually has helped. So
that's amazing. Kathy says, my mom came across an elderly man who had been scammed. was trying to buy a bunch of gift cards. That's always such a huge red flag, right? And says she tried to talk to him. He wouldn't listen. So she flagged the store manager. So he was aware. Kathy says then called the man's son, it's a small town, and gave him the heads up. Thankfully, all the gift cards were for the local grocery store because the employee had loaded the wrong thing. This is a recurring and common thing. It's on surface, I don't mean to insult anybody, but it sounds so ridiculous, so preposterous. You owe money to the Canada Revenue Agency and you've got to pay it off in gift cards. Like, who would believe it? But people believe it, unfortunately.
They do. And you'd be surprised. I know this is going to sound strange. I've talked to people who've never used a gift card in their life. A senior, new Canadians. There's people out there who don't actually know what a gift card really is and how it works. So those tend to be the people that fall for those. Also, I would flag that I've received some things where scammers will go to a church website, a hockey association website, a soccer association website. They take all the email addresses for everyone on the hockey board or the church board, and then they email every email they can find and say, the president of the hockey association wants you to go pick up some gift cards for our year-end fundraiser for the kids. Oh my
gosh, of course.
And it looks like it's coming from the name of the hockey association president. And I know people who were literally standing at Best Buy buying a whole bunch of gift cards because of a fake email they thought was coming from someone in their own sports association. So again, there's these little twists on these gift card scams and every scam that make it more believable.
Yeah, I can see myself getting duped by that one. I'm glad you're here. I'm really glad you're here. Johnny, why don't we take a look at that? This is the speeding ticket, the parking ticket scam that people might, are these typically text messages that folks are going to receive on their phone?
Yes, this one so far has mostly been a text message. This is the more recent one that came out just in the last month. We had the same thing happen again last year. Sometimes they look like they're coming from the city of Edmonton and city of Calgary specifically. Sometimes it looks like it's coming from the government of Alberta, like this one does. And the website is very close to the real website.
Alberta-fine.ca. It looks kind of legit.
Right. And they want you to click on that link. And of course, what do they want? Your credit card information, your personal information, and then suddenly you've been compromised.
These romance scams are the ones that really, obviously all these stories suck, but these are the ones where someone's been catfished, they've been strung along, they've been emotionally manipulated, they've been financially devastated. These are the real heart crushers.
They really are. And honestly, of all the scams, this one is near and dear to my heart, pardon the pun, because I've talked to so many victims of romance scams. I've talked to families whose family members have committed suicide after they lost their life savings to a romance scammer. Spoke to a woman recently in the Ponoka area who lost $52,000 to a man that she'd been talking to online. They steal photos from innocent people. So Ryan, your photo from wherever could be used right now and given the name Mark Smith or anything else and used in multiple places to try and woo people around the world. There's a lot of innocent people that are impacted by this. I've talked to a victim one time. She told her children she had a gambling addiction because that was less embarrassing than telling her children that she was losing her house because of a romance scam.
Oh my gosh. And you can kind of understand, right? Because nobody wants to feel stupid. Nobody wants to feel gullible or naive, right?
And that's the reason why, though, this one is so, well, all scams, but especially this one are so dangerous. Because of that shame, police estimate maybe 5% of people that have been victimized by romance scams actually come forward.
5%.
And most people don't even tell their own families and friends because of that shame. So one of the things that I always do when I go out and talk to seniors and community groups is really stress, you need to make sure your family is supported. You need to make sure that they can talk to you about anything, even something like this, and you won't laugh at them. You won't make them feel bad, and you'll help them go to the police and report this, because some of these romance scammers are overseas, but there are some that are in Canada and are local. So it's really good to report these things to the local police and also the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre.
I knew that time was going to fly with you. I'm not surprised. The way that you can talk about this really is remarkable. Before we go, I know that it seems like almost everybody these days is using Facebook Marketplace. If they're not using that, they're using Kijiji or eBay or what have you. But you do hear many stories of people that have been taken on things, platforms like Facebook Marketplace. What are some, sort of like operating principles to keep in mind? What's a good approach to using sites like that to make sure that we don't get scammed?
Number one, never send a deposit. I don't care how badly you want that couch, that washing machine, that patio furniture, never send a deposit. Scammers will tell you there's 10 people lined up that want that item. They're just saying that. Don't give any money until you're actually standing there and seeing the object. There was an incident recently in the Edmonton area with an air conditioning unit. It didn't exist. They were taking deposits during the heat wave. 8 people in 24 hours showed up at a home in North Edmonton for an air conditioner that the family didn't have. The scammers had just picked an address in North Edmonton, and all of these people who'd paid for an air conditioner showed up at an innocent family's house demanding their air conditioner.
And this family's all of a sudden got to deal with 8 people that are pissed off.
Oh, and more than that, they kept coming. Yeah, like they finally had to put a sign on their door that said, "Sorry, it's not us. We don't have an air conditioner. You've been scammed. Here's the number for police."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You need to remember that they steal the photos and create profiles. If you think you're talking to Annabelle Smith on Facebook and she's this, really pretty blonde holding a baby, that's not really her. That's not really her picture, and that's not really her name.
It's a bit of a gut punch to see how many people in our live chat are relating to this, right? Like it's reiterating to me that even within the Real Talk audience is like this is something that's been we knew that this was a big issue. I mean, Johnny and I and everybody else I'm talking to is getting these scam calls, and we see the Jasper thing flare up, which, to be honest with you, kind of like I felt a little bit more anger about that one than other ones. I don't know why. Just it feels like capitalizing on tragedy is just about the worst thing you can do. But all these comments in here are reiterating to me, like MA is like, never, with exclamation, never send a deposit, ever. Like, you know what I mean? Says that they had a recent riding lawnmower scam that they experienced, right? Jillian says, this is so sad. They're taking advantage of people's shame and embarrassment. Only 5% reporting love scams. I mean, that's hard to wrap your mind around. This is something that is impacting people, young and old, urban and rural, Western and Eastern Canadian. You know what I mean? It's something like everybody's being targeted. That's the one thing we have in common, but maybe not everybody has the skills and tips that you've been able to put on our radar. We're grateful for it.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
What's
It's so important to talk about scams. I talk about them with my teenage sons. How many people talk to their kids about scams? Kids are being targeted too. Snapchat, Instagram, right? Predators and online scammers are reaching out there too. It's not just seniors, it's all of us. We need to talk more about scams and fraud prevention.
We have younger members of our audience. We hear from high school students when we talk about things like tech in schools, and we have a lot of parents as well. What do you tell your teenagers? What's something that every family should be discussing around the dinner table?
Well, really just that scammers are out there and they're going to pretend to be anyone. My sons will show me the scam messages they get on social media and Snapchat, and my son received one that said, "Hi, my name is Anna. My mom and your mom went to high school together." And started this conversation, and then, my son kind of, let it go because he knew it was a scam, but they go on to ask for pictures, personal information, right? Maybe they're grooming, you never really know what they're up to. Is it a financial scam? Is it a child predator scam? There's so many things to watch out for. So really just make sure you're talking to your family about the existence of scams and double check everything.
People can find you, and we'll post the handles in the notes for the podcast and on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter. Is that the best way? Like if an organization right now or a community would love to bring you in to educate them or to help them detect any problems, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
You bet. They can reach out to me on any of my social media platforms is probably the easiest way. I'm working on a new website right now, Ryan, so I hope to have that soon. And yeah, it's been great just getting out and talking to more and more Albertans. And people never stopped reaching out to me on social media with their problems, which I absolutely love.
Well, listen, we're grateful for this, and you have provided a remarkable service for people. And I guarantee, of all these gut punch stories, and I'm sure you're aware of this, I'm sure you think about this, you just don't say it. But of all the stories, the gut punches of people that have lost something or lost everything, think of how many people you've protected. Think of how many scams you've prevented, right? It makes it worth it.
Yeah, even if it helps one person. I did a story years ago as one of my favorite investigations on a romance scam, and all the people who messaged me and said, I was standing at the bank about to send money, and because I saw that story or saw that on social media, I didn't do it. And that makes all the difference.
No kidding. Julie Matthews, it's so nice to see you in person again. I just want to say, friend to friend, I'm so proud of what you've done with this career path. And you provide such great value to people and saving people along the way. And we appreciate your time in studio. Thanks for making the trip in.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. That's Julie Matthews, the consumer protection expert. Let us know what you think about this. If you have a first-hand story, even if it makes you feel a little embarrassed, let me read this. I love this, a follow-up comment from Jeremy in the chat, who says, I really appreciate the tone of this conversation. It's not stupid people that are victimized by these scams. He says there's so much stigma and it has to be tackled head on. I agree 100%, Jeremy, and I appreciate you making that point. Send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com if your family has unfortunate personal experience with something we've talked about. If there's a scam maybe that you saw or experienced that we didn't touch on, or if there's a different angle you think we should discuss on this. These conversations go on, and make sure you share this interview with people you think might benefit, including beloved family members who might not otherwise have this on their radar. Coming up in 1 minute, we're going to talk to the CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, Shauna Feth. They have a business resiliency program for displaced Jasper business owner-operators, plus a chamber fund. That's another reputable place you can make a donation for Jasper evacuees. But first, I want to let you know that this conversation is happening with the support of our friends at Kubi Renewable Energy, Western Canada's busiest solar installer, proudly headquartered out of Edmonton, a beautiful brand new office in Calgary. They're down in Lethbridge, covering the southern Alberta market. And then, of course, they're in Kamloops, serving BC, Yukon, Northwest Territories as well. You're going, gosh, it sounds like they're really busy. Well, they sure are. And that's why they constantly, as a matter of fact, are always hiring. They're looking for people who'd like to help grow clean energy in Canada. As Kubi reshapes Canada's energy portfolio, they're looking for electricians, for apprentices, for salespeople, office managers, HR professionals, you name it. People that want to be part of a dynamic company that's helping everyday Canadians decrease their carbon footprint. You can check out the projects they work on, from residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and submit your resume. You'll find all those details under the careers link at kubienergy.ca. And as we think of our fellow Canadians, a lot of talk about Jasper right now, but fires are burning elsewhere too. Plus, people are experiencing flooding. People are experiencing things like infrastructure breakdown, sewer backups, finding black mold or asbestos as part of their home renovation project. You don't want to try to deal with this stuff yourself. If you're looking for a trusted voice, and chances are your insurance policy lets you pick who does the work, we recommend Complete Care Restoration. They're ready to respond 24/7. We've worked with them. They built our studio, and we recommend them without hesitation. You can contact Complete Care Restoration today online. Just visit the sponsors tab on our website, ryanjesperson.com. How do you feel after a conversation like that? I feel like I've learned more, like I'm better equipped to understand some of this, but I also realize that I need to be way more on guard than I think I have been in past.
I've been on guard for years now. I mean, I'm not lying when I say yesterday I get a call, and it's always like they seem to use the same first three numbers or same last numbers. I always get 780-909 for some reason.
Interesting.
Which is weird because my number starts with 909.
I wasn't going to say that, but
I
does,
I always wait, because if someone's calling you about a bill or from, your energy company or from your bank, they're going to leave a message. That's what professionals do. They wait for a beep and they say, hi, this is whoever. Call me back at this number. It's in regards to this. And they never leave a message. And I think that's the first wall of defense, is just don't answer unknown numbers. Wait for a text or a voicemail. But even then, listen to the voicemail and the text carefully, because like Julie was saying, there's so many layers to scams now. It's not just an email from an African prince who says he needs your money and he'll pay you back 10 times that in a month. These are sophisticated. People are using AI. They're using voice recognition. They're researching their victims beforehand, instead of before, I think it was just like fishing in a bucket, you know what I mean? Or shooting in a barrel. You're just trying to hit someone. Now they have layers, and then they have accomplices and partners as well, corroborating this stuff. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's just so well organized. Tracy says on Facebook every day she sees so many furnace cleaning companies and car detailers. Says they post and then they reply to their own posts with alternative fake profiles. And man, this is what sucks is like I have a buddy who has a car detailing business and who does operate and advertise on Facebook. And you kind of go, oh man, this is a space that you're playing in where you're going to have to deal with, but listen, if that just means that the onus is put on business owners to prove their authenticity, to prove who they are, or to be establishing these relationships, then so be it.
But there are fake businesses out there too that it's the other side of the coin.
For sure.
And then they employ bots or other people. Like you'll see a business and you'll think, okay, they only have 6 reviews, but all the reviews are great and they look like real people. Click on those profiles. If those profiles are people who like they live in the, like it says they live in Edmonton and they bought a car or whatever, but they clearly don't. They live in like a tropical region. I've seen this before. Or if they joined Facebook, this year, nobody joins Facebook, in the same year that they like sell a car, review a business, get married, like all these different things. And then you go look at the profile pictures and it's maybe 1 or 2 pictures. You really have to go in depth. And I know it sounds like a lot of research, but like someone said in here, it's Darwinism. It is. If you're going to expect that everyone is kind of a good person and that, life is just kind of going to breeze by and no one's scamming, I think Julie said, hit the nail right on the head. Assume everything is a scam right off the bat and go from there.
I know, and it's tough to go through life like that, but it's you have to. Yeah, you have to. Here's a tip from Bunny Slippers, who says if you're using an Android phone, you can set it up to filter out spam calls, and it says as soon as I did this, those stupid calls decreased by like 95%. What about this from Tracy? He says the other day they heard about a store employee refusing to let an elderly lady buy gift cards because she recognized that same lady had been in a couple of days in a row. Listen, I'd rather err on the side of caution, and maybe that the beautiful little old lady that everybody loves and adores, the whole community cares about her. Maybe she is buying gift cards to put into the birthday bags for her grandson. Maybe it is legit, and maybe she gets a little annoyed, and then the store manager has to come and it gets all sorted out. But maybe, just maybe, that store teller saved that little old lady from losing a couple grand. What
doesn't
about this
hurt to check,
right?
But who's using an Android phone?
I was honestly going to take a little shot at the Android phones, but look at this iPhone nation over here. Travis says, I have an old, you know what, here, but we also get intel on how many of our audience members are using the Android or iPhones, and more people are using Androids than you might think, Johnny. Travis says, I have an older friend who really thought that a hot 20-something airline attendant needed $3,000 to get home. Travis says, thank God I was having a beer with him at the time. Travis, who unfortunately had to let his buddy know that no, the hot airline attendant did not want to connect with him. Travis, you did a service to your pal. I wonder what our next guest has experienced when it comes to scams. She's not here to talk about that, but she is here to talk about reputable and trustworthy ways to support Jasper evacuees. Shauna Feth is the CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. Typically, it's the first Monday of every month that Shauna has her eye on Alberta Business. But Shauna, we're going to be away on that Monday, and so we're grateful you could make yourself available early. We wanted to connect with you as soon as possible. Are you seeing an uptick on your personal cell phone of attempted scams, of scam callers, of calls from people cold calling you that you don't recognize? Or are you with the rest of us on this?
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, we actually had to send a bulletin out yesterday to our entire network because there was a phishing scam over email that was actually naming some of our board members in it. So it's becoming much more complex in terms of trying to, as organizations, to ensure that we have the cybersecurity and security in place in order to ensure that these types of things don't take hold. And it's amazing. It's amazing how complex they're becoming, and really the intel and how they are skimming for information that's actually going to make them look legitimate. It's like I said, this just happened to us yesterday.
I can't believe that. I didn't know that. I didn't know you were going to say that. This happened to you, your organization, just yesterday. This is just reiterating how pervasive this is. Your whole team at Alberta Chambers, obviously you've got members, chamber members from across the province, but right now it's all eyes on Jasper, isn't it? And in particular, I know there's the human element. Doesn't matter what people do for work, doesn't matter what people do for business, whatever, but your organization is mobilizing to make sure that chamber members, that business owner operators are looked out for, especially in these early days of the evacuation and for a lot of people starting again from scratch. Where do you start as an organization with Alberta Chambers of Commerce?
Yeah, so the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, of course, we always mobilize our network and mobilize in times of need, and our hearts are just going out to everybody who's impacted by all of the wildfires in the province. But particularly, obviously, we have a chamber in Jasper, and we've been very connected to Patty, who's the leader there, just staying up to date on what she's getting in terms of information, just letting her know that we're here to support her and the business community as they look at, next steps. And one of the things that we've done in the past is in 2013, as a result of the High River floods, we set up the Chamber Relief Trust Fund. So essentially, it's set up to support the chamber itself, to start providing those resources, to start providing that information out to the business community as they look at, what are our next steps. And in fact, as of you're hearing it first, we haven't even confirmed all of the presenters, but we're going to be doing a town hall next Wednesday, August 7th from 3 until 4:30. And what we'll be doing there is just focusing in on those first initial steps. So as businesses and business owners get back into the community, what do they need to be paying attention to? Top of mind for us is mental health, supporting them individually first and foremost. We'll be talking about, insurance. We'll be talking about banking. We'll talk to various levels of government, the municipality, GOA, et cetera, about what they can expect in terms of resources and how they, if there's any relief or any aid, how they apply for that. So we're really excited. You're the first to hear it. We're literally just starting to put the program together. But again, we're here to support and really support the business community, and cannot express enough how deeply we are sympathizing with what's happening to individuals who have been displaced in this disaster.
Well, it reiterates, one of the values of I think being a chamber member, and the value of Chambers of Commerce, in that you have a collective group. You've got a group of people that can understand a lot of these challenges that people are going to be experiencing, and they can understand the best way to address those. So you've got the town hall coming up on Wednesday, August 7th. Best place for people to connect and get more information on that, probably your website, I'm assuming, abchamber.ca.
Absolutely. We'll be posting it up there. It'll be going out on social media, as well as the Jasper Park Chamber will also have information. We're working too with Business Council of Alberta, so they'll be posting some information. So just keep your eyes open, and we'll be distributing it across various social media channels. So if any of your viewers have anybody who has been impacted, has a business that would like to learn more about what to expect going back, please have them find those details and join us, because we're lining up a good group of speakers that can help support that process.
Okay, in our show notes, we'll link directly to there's like a direct deposit form, or you can do pre-authorized payments as well. Again, it's just so on our radar right now, Shauna, that we want to be presenting vetted, credible information, and here is one. People that want to contribute to the Chamber Relief Trust Fund can do so directly with this banking information here. They're not providing their own banking information. This is the information to contribute to that trust fund. This was established more than 10 years ago, right? This was, I feel like I remember it like it was yesterday. I can remember that iconic photo of the firefighter carrying that older lady from the dinghy back onto dry land in High River. Everybody remembers when it felt like half the province was underwater. But this has been a trust fund established then and then all the way through for people that have experienced natural disasters like this Jasper fire.
Absolutely, yeah. So to date, it's supported. Obviously, it was put in place for High River. but it supported Lacrete and, of course, Fort McMurray during their devastation. And now the sole focus will be on Jasper. I do want to say that this is an ongoing fund. So it's, the funds that go into it are used, if it doesn't all get used to support the Jasper Chamber to get back up and running and support the local business community, then it will stay and be there to support any communities in the future. And let's cross our fingers that it doesn't need to be used in the future, but it's always there to support whatever chamber is being impacted.
Perfect. This business resiliency resource that the chamber has, this is really a robust resource, again, at abchamber.ca. This is not something that you've kind of like slapped together in the last week ever since the Jasper fire started. Nobody predicted what was going to happen in Jasper, but your team has been putting this together since the beginning of this year. Is that right?
That's correct, Ryan, and a great partnership with the government of Alberta, Jobs, Economy and Trade Ministry. We started talking early in the year about, last year, obviously, we saw a lot of evacuations, and luckily not the level of devastation we're seeing in Jasper, but just how, understanding that we have a network of 108 chambers across the province, and in those conversations with the GOA, just that how do we mobilize that network to support if there is an emergency situation. And so that's essentially, we started standing up the Business Resiliency website with resources. And what's really interesting is it's a one-stop shop. So we're trying to make it the most user-friendly, comprehensive place to go for information. We have live RSS feeds of, everything that's coming out in terms of bulletins. We have resources available to businesses, and it's actually layered. So it's not just what's currently happening and what we're dealing with right now, but it's also about communities and businesses to look at for preparation. So we look at, what do you need to be doing in terms of preparing, so that you are ready in case something does happen in your community. It looks at, okay, we're currently in the disaster situation. What do we need to be doing? What resources do we need to have? And have all of that information in one place. And then post, so in the aftermath, when and similar to what we're doing now, after the event has happened, then how do we mobilize? What do we need to be paying attention to? What resources are we going to need? And all of that is in one spot. So we're just really excited about the fact that the foresight and planning on this project, and that we're able to mobilize that. Interestingly enough, Ryan, there is a section on cybersecurity in there as well.
I shouldn't be surprised that you guys had that on your radar, because kind of the whole idea of this is to ensure that your business is prepared to navigate challenges across the board, which is why I think it's such a great resource. Well, again, we'll link to it in the show notes. Part of this is like, the mental health supports and the supports for businesses as they navigate things like insurance claims. I was talking to an insurance executive off the record yesterday, just giving us a sense of the value. I'm not going to say the number yet of what they're pegging this Jasper fire at, but it's in the hundreds of millions, obviously. And you recognize the business implications there. But then there's also things like business continuity, where for a lot of these businesses, they may not be based in Jasper as we speak. They're evacuated, but they've still got to keep that business running. It seems like for as many businesses as there are that many different types of challenges that people are going to need assistance and support with right now.
Absolutely. And that's there again, just reach out to ACC. During COVID, we stood up what was called Chamber Market, and I'm maybe digressing a little bit from the original conversation.
That's allowed.
But that was absolutely put in place because we knew we had businesses that were shut down and didn't have capacity to find a way to get their goods and services to market in a cost-effective way, didn't have the ability to stand up that online e-commerce platform. So that is actually still in existence. So, stuff like that, if you're impacted and you think that you have goods or services that could be put onto an e-commerce platform and you just never had that opportunity, that's just one other way that we could support, and those businesses being impacted could find an alternative way of getting their goods to market while they are displaced and out of their premises.
We've spoken to you several times, with your eye on Alberta business every single month about the provincial priorities research that the Chamber does. And this is a really neat way to get a sense of where business owners, business operators are at across the province. You're collecting insights from like hundreds of members of the business community, right? Like more than in this most recent one, people can check it out on your website, more than 500 members of the business community, more than 800 members of the public. And there's a lot of talk about how people feel about the long-term future of the province. This is always interesting. Where are people at right now as we're midway through the summer 2024?
It's interesting. So we've been benchmarking since 2019, Ryan, and in 2019 we saw, so we surveyed over 500 businesses and over 800 public community members, and in 2019 there was a 5% gap between the two groups in terms of the long-term future of the province of Alberta. In 2024, that gap has really, really increased. So interestingly enough, it's our business community who are 15% more positive than the public about the province's future, where the province is going, everything from the economy to investment, et cetera. One of the other interesting things that we've seen close the gap, or where the gap has closed, is around the healthcare issue. So it's really interesting that the public was significantly higher over the course of several years, and now that gap is really closing, and businesses are identifying that healthcare is, if we don't have healthy employees, we don't have healthy businesses, and that's become a real priority for the business community as well.
So so I'm understanding this correctly. So opinion about the state of Alberta's finances has reversed over the last 5 years. Prior to 2022, it was the public that was more positive and less concerned than business was about the state of Alberta's finances, and now business is more positive and less concerned about the state of finances than the public. Why? What can you pin down? Is there one reason for that? Is it a myriad of reasons? What's your thought on that?
Well, I think, again, it's we don't dive deep into the details, but I think it's, a lot of things have happened in terms of inflationary pressures. A lot of things have happened, in terms of, everything. Let's just say this: the public and business community do align on the fact that reducing taxes is an important priority. And so when you talk about reducing taxes, you got to understand that, we're just talking about healthcare, where are those dollars going to come to fund those resources that we need. And we've talked before about it, Ryan, in the province. We've seen just this massive surge. Last year, we saw the largest increase in population. And so I think what we're really seeing is, how are we going to support all the newcomers that are coming in to fill the roles? We've talked a lot about talent in the past, Ryan. We need these individuals coming in to fill these spaces. But we also need to be really proactive in planning for, how are we going to house them? Again, we talked about, healthcare and all of the social supports that these individuals are going to need as they come into the country. And I think that's where you're seeing kind of this divergence in terms of the public and the business community.
Interesting to see among members of the public. Again, to remind people, about 500 plus business owners contribute to your survey, about 800 members of the public. It's more the members of the public that have identified reducing taxes as their top concern than it is members of business. I mean, I'm sure most businesses would prefer to pay less than more tax, but it's the public that it looks to me the number of public respondents to your survey that have identified reducing taxes as their most important priority has increased almost 20% over the last 5 years.
It says 17%.
Yeah. Says a lot about how people are feeling about money crunch.
Exactly. And we're seeing that, right? Like the inflationary pressures on families, everything, well, all of the inflationary pressures, whether it be electricity, food, shelter, clothing, going through all of the elemental needs of being a human. But it's reducing taxes is one of the levers that potentially could be pulled to reduce some of that inflationary pressure that families are feeling in all aspects of their lives. And businesses are not immune. I mean, businesses are feeling the same impacts. We're hearing stories, and I think I've shared this with you before, but just stories where, things like utilities costs are lapsing lease costs in businesses across the province. And that's detrimental. I mean, imagine if you're paying more in your utilities than you are on your actual physical space. So, everybody, it's being felt differently between the business and the public, but it's interesting that there's that 17% increase in the public sentiment around taxes over the course of the last 5 years.
Yeah, it really is. By the way, talking about utilities, let me pump our tires for a quick second, Sean. About 2 weeks ago, we talked to Max Fawcett. It was on July 11th, our episode, where we dug into, actually, we put my utility bills up on the screen, and Max took us through it and helps us understand your power bill and your natural gas bill and what you're paying and why you're paying so much. For people that want to check that out, that want to learn a little bit more about rising utility costs, just check out the July 11th episode of Real Talk, or our highlight, which is titled, Are You Getting Gouged? Shauna Feth is the president and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. And you guys, I like these hiring intentions surveys that you do. I want to make sure that people know about this, because the hiring intentions survey is open just for one more day, right? This takes about 5 minutes for people to figure out or to chime in on. And it kind of gives us a sense of where businesses are at across the province. And it's really interesting and probably valuable insights for people that right now are looking for work.
Absolutely. It, like you said, it takes about 5 minutes to complete, and it really is. We did a panel on the Talent Development Task Force, but we partner with the Alberta Post-Secondary Network. This is a partnership with several industry partners, the Government of Alberta as well, to just get a really good handle on where the talent gaps are, what do businesses need going forward, and doing some of that projection too. It's just not what is happening today, but what are you going to need going forward to support your business from a talent perspective. And so it's really important for us to collect sample sizes from all industries and all sizes of businesses across the province. So anybody who hasn't taken it and would like to provide some insight on what challenges you're being faced with, or what opportunities as well, it doesn't have to just be challenges, but what opportunities lie ahead in terms of your hiring intentions and your talent development. We just would encourage you to take a look at that survey, and please join us in providing some of that critical data as we look at supporting our post-secondary network and the province and students as we are training and looking to provide the talent that businesses need.
Okay, these are such great resources, and I want to let everybody know we'll lay all this out. So the provincial priorities stuff, the trust fund stuff, the business resiliency stuff, and the hiring intentions, so everyone can make it nice and easy. Those will be in the show notes. Speaking of job seekers, before we thank you for your time, you've done a ton of work on job fairs, making sure that Western Canadians, in particular Albertans or people that want to move here and would love to live and work here, are receiving these ample opportunities to be exposed to the job openings that are out there, and to understand a little bit more about that. And you've got more than 10 of them, I think about a dozen, coming up this fall as well. What do the job seekers need to know?
Yeah, and so what these are is this is a partnership again with the Government of Alberta, and looking at really focusing in on providing those resources for those individuals that are facing barriers to employment, long-term unemployed individuals, people that have different accessibility issues, newcomers. So we're looking at all of the segments of individuals who are being challenged for whatever reason to find that great job and that great employer. And so that's really the focus of these. And it's focusing to not just on, we've done a really good job of making sure that we're training people, we're putting them into resources. There are a lot of resources out there to support the individual from a professional development perspective, or to help prepare them to get into or back into the workforce. But what is really interesting about these ones is that we're also working with the employers and saying, okay, if you're intentionally looking to hire individuals that have accessibility issues, for instance, here are the accommodations that you are going to need to make, and you're going to need to be understanding of that fact, or you're going to need to, physically change spaces, whatever the case may be, in order to make that really effective. And so just fantastic. We've done 26 of them across the province this year. Really excited. We've got another 12 coming up. So I believe we shared the link with you, Ryan. So I would just ask that, if anybody has someone in their family that's looking for a job or is having challenges finding a job, has any, issues around trying to get into that perfect job. They're all over the province coming up in September. Really excited. We've had over 300 employer profiles put up on our hire by referral talent site. 500 individuals have posted, 500 individual jobs have been posted. Over 12,000 job seekers have attended one of these local fairs.
Wow.
So really, really fantastic stats in terms of the success. And just, as the project goes forward, we're in the first year of it, but as the project goes forward, what we're really going to be really excited to report on is the success in terms of, how many of those job seekers actually found that perfect fit with a business that was willing to accommodate or support them in some additional way to ensure that they were enabled to be successfully employed. We've been able to commit $780,000 across the province to these events so far, and we'll continue to invest because, again, for us to support the business community in the province, talent is by far, we talk about provincial priorities, talent by far has always emerged as one of the number one challenges that they're being faced with right now. And so this is just one more, in addition to the Talent Development Task Force, this is just one more way that we can support that. And would just really encourage any of your listeners and, of course, any employers out there who are looking to hire and want some incredibly capable individuals to fill those roles. We just encourage everybody to join and be involved in those.
Doesn't this feel so nice to be able to have these conversations as opposed to like 18 months ago when we were, maybe 24 months ago when we were talking about like record unemployment? We were seeing numbers on unemployment and inflation that nobody really was familiar with. I mean, a lot of people would look back to like the early 1980s, but these good news stories of like incredible, 12,000 attendees at your job fairs, people being placed into new positions, employers and companies feeling bullish on their potential and being able to bring in new talent. This is the stuff we love to talk about, and in the midst of some real challenging circumstances in Alberta, wildfire included. These are what, we refer to these as praise reports. It's exciting to see and reason for a lot of optimism. I'm not surprised to see on your provincial priorities on that polling for that research to show that people are feeling more optimistic now than they were before.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, I just, one of the things that surfaced for me too, Ryan, just as you were talking about Jasper, and I'll go back to answering your question, but just also anybody who wants to, you're talking about reliable places to donate or provide support. And it was just announced last week that the federal and provincial government are joining Red Cross on a campaign where they're going to match dollar for dollar. So every dollar that you spend, $3 will go to the relief fund for the Jasper community. So I meant to plug that earlier, and I just wanted to make sure that we don't end the conversation without doing that. Also, I was just notified yesterday that United Way, again, another very reputable organization, has a campaign for, again, assistance to the Jasper community. So there are other resources other than just our Chamber Relief Fund. There are other resources if you want to donate directly to the communities, and they're being, you're being able to maximize value on your donation in those cases.
Well, I think it's awesome that you're promoting and supporting things that aren't necessarily yours. It just goes to show and it reiterates how everybody feels like we want to do whatever we can and whatever's possible to help out our fellow Albertans. We've been talking to Shauna Feth. We've got a lot of obviously stuff going on, which is a testament to what you and your team are doing over at the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. So we'll link to everything. This is for our audience that you've heard Shauna and I discuss today. You'll find all of that in the show notes. And then once we get back into the beginning of September, Shauna, we'll welcome you back. Your eye on Alberta Business in September. I know you've got a big event, a virtual event coming up on September 27th. People should make note of, recognizing the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a talent development symposium at the end of November, as well as your fall board meeting. We'll cover all of that ground as we get, I can't believe we're starting to say, into back to school territory. But that's where we are. In the meantime, have a wonderful month of August, my friend, and keep up the great work.
You as well, Ryan. Take care and enjoy your August.
Yeah, we sure will. That's Shauna Feth. She's the president and CEO at the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. You can visit their website at abchamber.ca to learn more about the benefits of membership. We have a big show coming up on August 2nd. This is Friday. If you're listening to this day of, it's tomorrow. We're going to lead it off with Miss Canadian Universe, Ashley Callingbull. She's on her way to Miss Universe. Miss Universe Canada will be joining us in studio. Federal Minister Mark Miller will join us in studio, and then the return of the strategists for a Real Talk Roundtable. It's an episode you won't want to miss. Thanks in advance for being there, and thanks for telling your friends about Real Talk. We'll see you again soon.